Hello and welcome back everyone to this NASSCO MIS training series. In today's video, we'll be talking about the NASSCO API. Okay, so what is the NASSCO API? The NASSCO Application Programming Interface, NAPI for short, is a computing interface which defines interactions between multiple software intermediaries. Okay, so simply put, the NAPI allows authenticated external clients to make requests to the NASSCO MIS. And the results of those requests are returned in JSON format. Okay, so what are the requirements to be able to make an API call? To make a successful API call, you're going to need an API key, which is a unique identifier for the client making the request. You're also going to need a transaction OTP, which is a one-time password that's generated from the client application. Okay, so the NASSCO MIS does not generate this code for you. Your client is the one that generates this transaction OTP. Next, you need an API hash key. The API hash key is a password that is used along with your transaction OTP to generate an API hash value. Okay, so this hash value is actually what is sent. The API hash key is actually not sent. And you should note that if the client does send the API hash key in their request, it will be rejected. So what actually gets sent in the request is the API hash value. Okay, and the value is generated from the API hash key. Okay, and your API hash value is just an auto-generated password that is gotten from the combination of the transaction OTP and the API hash value. Okay, so what actually gets sent is your API key and your API hash value. So those are the two things that actually get sent in the get URL. The types of requests you can make with the NASSCO API are read request, read info request, create request, and update request. We'll see in detail the types of reads and the types of creations you can do in a future video. But for now, these are the 4 types of requests you can make to the NASSCO MIS using the API. And the last thing we'll talk about here is the NW filtering tool. So remember, these requests are like queries you're making to the NASSCO MIS database. So basically, this NW filtering tool is what helps you to basically filter the data that you're getting back from your request. So you should think about it like your where clause. If you use the NW filtering tool to specify the data you're looking for, it will return a JSON that you can copy and use to make your request. So it's just a handy tool to help you quickly generate your JSON, and you can basically copy that into the request you want to make, so you don't have to bother writing the JSON yourself. Okay, and another thing to note here, there is an API test environment where you can simulate all your requests before you actually go and implement it on your client application. Okay, so let's have a look at what that test environment looks like and actually do 1 or 2 requests to the NASSCO MIS. So we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm logged in to the NASSCO MIS. You can see I'm in the API documentation module, which is under data mining. And here I can see my request types. I can see my read request. I can see my update, create, and read info. Okay, and on the read, these are the type of read requests I can make. Okay, so I can get a list of beneficiaries in an SSN mine. I can get list of countries, get list of SSN mines. Under update, I can update beneficiary list. Under create, I can create a new SSN program, new SSN program purpose, or create a new grievance. And under read info, I can read the details of a mine, the details of an SSN program. I can see beneficiary details, community details, and some other options here. Okay, so this is the interface where you can always come and see the documentation for the API and how to use it. Okay, so if I were to click on get list of SSN programs, for example, you'd see I get all the requirements and all the fields and the formatting I would need to make a successful call to get the list of SSN programs. So as you can see here, I would need my API key. I'll need the method, my transaction OTP, my API hash value. I can also specify the format, so I can get my information in JSON or CSV. I can specify my offset. I can specify a limit, and I can do a where. This where can also be done with my NW filtering tool. So I can access that tool just by clicking here, and the tool comes up. We'll demonstrate this in a bit. And I can also specify the order in which I want my data to be returned to me. Okay, so this is different for all the different requests you'll be making. Some requirements may vary depending on what type of request you're making. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a request to get the list of all the SSN programs that are currently on our database. Okay, so to do that, I will need my API key and of course my hash key. So these are already will be sent to you when you are created on the NASSCO MIS and you're given access to be able to make these calls. So once you're given access, the API key and your hash key will be sent to you. Okay, but meanwhile, I have my API key and my hash key over here for this demonstration. And to test the request, all I have to do is click on the button here that says send test request. You can see my API key is populated for me here. Let me just make sure and copy that out. So I'll paste my key again here just to make sure. So the API method is get SSN programs. Okay, my transaction OTP that's generated by my client can be, it says so one-time use password. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to use just a random password for this demonstration. Okay, and my API hash key, I'm just going to copy it out of here. And yeah, remember your API hash key and your API key are going to be given to you when you are given access to integrate with the API. Okay, so don't worry too much about this. Okay, and your hash value, remember this hash value is auto-generated. So for our test environment, I'm just going to leave this at auto generate. And once I click on save, get parameters and proceed to step 2, this is where I now specify my post parameters. Okay, so if I were to expand my fields options, you'll see what fields I'm getting back. So as you can see, I can see the name of the program here, category of the intervention, uh, source of funding, program manager, and the status and ID. Okay, so if I didn't want to see any of these fields back, I can just come here and remove the field. Say I didn't want to see the date, I just want to see maybe the name of the program. I can just delete the other fields that I feel are unnecessary. Okay, but I want everything to come back, so I'm just going to leave this as is. Okay. Here we can also specify what format we want our information to be returned in. So I can choose JSON or CSV. So those are the two formats you can pick. Here's where I specify the offset. Here's where I specify my limits. And here is where I specify my where. Okay, so remember this is, think of this as a query. Okay, so and if you want to really specify what type of information to pull out from SSN programs, this is where you can do it. So you can just type in some JSON here to specify the exact type of data you want from the SSN programs. Okay, and also remember, if you don't want to create the JSON yourself, you can use the NW filtering tool to do this for you. Okay, and or you can specify the order of your data in this text box here. Okay, so but if we're satisfied with everything, I'm just going to click on Save Test Request. And here you can see, let me expand this. You can see the data that is returned to me. Okay, so all my data is in this array, in this data array. Okay, and once the status is 1, it means that the read operation was successful. Okay, so this is the information as returned. So all the list of SSN programs, you can see the name here. I have RSVP. I have one called Mike, one CSDP. This is all test data, so it's fine. So these are the list of all the SSN programs that are currently in the database, and they are returned in JSON format. And here in our URL, you can see our API key here. Okay, the type of requests, get SSN programs, and our transaction OTP and our API hash value. Okay, and our API key cannot be in this URL. If not, it will be rejected. That's just one thing to note. So now that we have our SSN programs, let's say we wanted to query specific details about the program. To do that, you'd need the ID of the program you're trying to get information from. So let's say for RSVP, we wanted some information about that program, because remember, this type of request just returns the list of a particular category, say SSN programs, beneficiaries, countries, states, etc. So if you wanted to read the details of an SSN program, for example, you would need the ID of the program you're trying to get that information from. So I would need the ID of, so I'm just going to take the ID of this. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to come down here to read info, and I'm going to say SSN program details. Okay, and you can see here I need the program ID. It's required. So the documentation really tells you everything you need here. So it just says you need to specify the program ID, your API key, the method, your OTP, and your hash value. Okay, so going to test out my request again. Okay, so I'm going to paste my program ID. Okay, I'm trying to get the details of this particular program. My API key is here. My API method is SSN program info. My OTP is also here. It's the last one we used. And remember, it's unique, so it's not going to work this time. If I don't change this OTP, my request won't work. And I'll show that in a second. And okay, so we have auto generate and we have our hash key. And if I send this request, you'd see that the system tells me there's a security violation. And that's because I'm using the same transaction OTP twice. So I've used it for two transactions. So it's like a token. So you have to use a unique or a different password each time you want to make a request. So if I come back here and I change that OTP to something else and send the request, you'll see that I will get the details of my SSN program. Okay, so we have the ID, serial number, user was created by, the name, the description. Okay, we don't have a program manager in our test information. We can see the status and we can see the SSN program purpose. Okay, so all the purpose that's attached to that program would also be displayed to us. Okay, so we just get all the details of the program here, of our SSN program here, and it's returned to us in JSON very neatly, so we can do with the information whatever we want. Okay, so always remember you can come here to the API documentation module to test out your request, and also you can come to use your NW filtering tool to generate JSON for you. All you need to do is specify what field you're looking for. Say name of program should be equal to or should contain specific characters. Say if you're looking for programs that have the keyword 2020 in them. Okay, so you can add that query and copy the JSON, and you should just paste this where we had the where clause. You can remember the have to change this. If you can remember your where clause, so yes, you can always come here and it will automatically paste that JSON that the NW2 generated for us. It would paste that automatically in our where text box. Okay, so you can easily just create your where clause and easily test out your request and everything using your API documentation module here. And this makes things easy for you. You can see what everything means and what kind of information you need to query, whatever information you need. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in a future video.